Hello my friends, I'm in Aguilar de la Frontera, a town inside the denomination of origin Montilla Moriles in Andalusia. The south of Spain is renowned for its exquisite fortified wines, which have a rich history and distinctive production methods. The Montilla Moriles and Jerez regions are particularly notable for their contributions to this wine category. Jerez, also known as the Sherry Triangle, is famous for producing a range of sherries, from the light and dry Fino and Manzanilla wines to the rich and dark Oloroso, utilizing the unique Solera system for aging. Montilla Moriles, situated inland, produces similar styles of wine, but primarily uses the Pedro Jimenez grape, known for its natural high sugar content, resulting in intensely sweet and complex wines. Both regions are celebrated for their exceptional craftsmanship and centuries-old traditions in the fortified wine production. Let's dive together into this incredible region. The Montilla Moriles and Jerez regions are prominent wine-producing areas located in the south of Spain, known for the distinctive fortified wines. Montilla Moriles is situated in the province of Córdoba in the Andalusian region. This inland area benefits from a warm continental climate, ideal for the Pedro Jimenez grape, which is predominantly used in its wine production. Jerez, also known as the Sherry Triangle, is located in the province of Cádiz, Andalusia. This region comprises three well-known subzones. Jerez de la Frontera is the heart of sherry production, where most of the bodegas, wineries, are located. This area is known for producing a wide range of sherry styles, from dry Finos to rich Olorosos. Sanlúcar de Barrameda is located on the coast. This town is famous for Manzanilla sherry, a type of Fino that develops a unique flavor profile due to the maritime influence and cooler climate. And El Puerto de Santa Maria, situated along the coast, contributes to the diversity of sherry production, benefiting from the mild coastal climate and producing a variety of sherry styles. The history of sherry production in the south of Spain is rich and dates back over 2 millennia. The origins can be traced to the Phoenicians, who introduced viticulture to the region more than 30 centuries ago. The Romans further developed winemaking techniques, but it was the Moors, during their rule from the 8th to the 13th centuries, who significantly influenced the region's viticulture and introducing distillation. In the 15th century, with the Reconquista and the rise of Spanish exploration, sherry gained international recognition. English traders, in particular, developed a taste for the wine, leading to significant export growth. In the 18th and 19th centuries, the establishment of many bodegas, wineries that still operate today, and the development of the Solera system, which is crucial for aging sherry, make a big change. Sherry production experienced fluctuations in popularity over the centuries, but has remained an important part of Spain's cultural and economic heritage. Today, sherry is renowned worldwide for its diverse styles and high quality, maintaining its status as a quintessential Spanish fortified wine. In Andalusia, and I'm with Gabriel Raya, who is from Bodegas Barrero here in Sanlúcar. Gabriel, ¿cómo estás?
Very well, thanks. Glad to have you here.
Gabriel, we are here with a very old well. You have shown us 3 Roman pillars before. We have a fantastic palace right here behind us that you still maintain very well. Very nice gardens. And the best part is that this is located in the middle of a large vineyard. I want you to tell me the story of the fortified wines of Andalusia. That goes, of course, beyond Sanlúcar. I don't want you to go back to the Phoenicians of 20 centuries ago either, not even to the Romans. A little more of the modern history.
How many days we have for this?
Well, make it quick, please.
Well, basically in regards to the recent history above all, there was a before and after when biological aging emerged here in Sanlúcar de Barrameda.
When did it happen?
Well, that happened at the end of the 18th century, beginning of the 19th.
Had it been done anywhere before?
We have proof of the origin. Sanlúcar de Barrameda makes 2 great contributions to the world of viticulture and winemaking, which are the classes and Solera system and the biological aging under a veil of flor.
Interesting. Tell me about the history.
Well, biological aging mainly arises in Sanlúcar de Barrameda, but we should not forget that the origin of traditional Andalusian wines dates back to before biological aging and are also wines primarily reductive in nature with an oxidative character. We owe it mainly to the discovery of America. When we discovered America, we realized that in the end, priests needed to carry wine to consecrate. And the best way to stabilize a wine is to add alcohol. Here in Andalusia and in Sanlúcar de Barrameda, in particular, virtually all the religious orders came here because they were leaving for America for the work of evangelization.
From the port of Cádiz?
Of course, many trips also departed from the port of Cadiz and the port of Sanlúcar as well. Columbus's 3rd expedition also set sail from Sanlúcar. Many voyages, including the first circumnavigation with Juan Sebastian Elcano and Ferdinand Magellan, left from the port of Sanlúcar. In the end, that situation, the fortification of wines with alcohol, is what gives rise to a before and after in the area. Because we realize that thanks to fortification, the wines remain much more stable during these journeys. Indeed, in trips to America, the ballast that the ships carried was wine.
Wine is heavy.
That's right. Also, note that wine has always been food as well, but at that time, even more so. We're talking about the 16th century and more. Because the water had rotting problems, the wine didn't.
This is interesting because the origin of the fortified wines of Andalusia is common, for example, to the fortified wines of Porto, because they also had to travel to England by sea. Similar with the Madeira wines, which got oxidized and overheated during long trips by sea.
There is a tradition of rancid wines. Ultimately, rancid wines are wines that are subjected to either a reduction or oxidative aging. We obviously share that common bond. because in the end we had to stabilize the wine, and the greatest stabilization method was fortification.
And well, we're talking about the 16th century. I suppose it would remain that way for a long time until it began to become more formalized. I don't know when the regulatory council of this area started. When did it start?
The regulatory council of this area and the denominations of origin that are the ones that led to the drafting of the regulations of the first councils. We're talking about the first ones, the first wine statute in Spain. It was published in the Gazeta de Madrid, which served as the official state gazette in 1933. And in 1935, the first operating regulations of the Jerez Regulatory Council were published. Although in 1933 it already included the designation of origin Manzanilla-Sanlúcar de Barrameda as a designation independent of Jerez. In those 2 years, the interests of Jerez and Sanlúcar came to an agreement, and Manzanilla is incorporated into the regulations of the Jerez Regulatory Council as a type of wine. This continued until 1964, when, to defend the real Manzanilla from false Manzanilla that began to proliferate in the market, it was decided that the Manzanilla-Sanlúcar de Barrameda denomination of origin would have its own official personality, which is the structure we currently have, in which we unite 3 denominations of origin into a single council. We have Manzanilla de Sanlúcar de Barrameda, Jerez Sherry, and later the Nagre de Jerez was incorporated.
I see, that's right. I know you're not in there, but the denomination of origin Montilla Moriles is also quite old. I believe it developed in parallel with many similarities. Different grades, probably because they focus on Pedro Jimenez, but it has the same history.
Yes, we share history and we share the soil, because in the end we are also talking about the Alabarriza Blanca. For a large part of the history, the wines from Montilla Moriles also came to the region. And in fact, it's still allowed because the Jerez denomination of origin is not a denomination calificafa, that is, the raw materials do not have to come exclusively from our production in Crianza area. It is still allowed, obviously, as a large part of the Pedro Ximénez that we age in the Marco de Jerez come from Montilla Moriles. Montilla Moriles was also one of the first designations included in the first wine statute of 1933, for example.
I wanted to get into the details because, like in Bordeaux, for example, where they separate negociants, producers, and farmers, here too there is a certain regulation, right?
Yes, but it is not regulated. The figure of the almacenista has historically existed here. In fact, in Sanlúcar de Barrameda, there were many almacenista bodegas, many that have been disappearing because in the end, the situation and the market have forced many almacenista bodegas to start marketing their own brands. We are talking about almacenista bodegas that could also have a vineyard or only had a winery, but they made wine, they produced wines. And that wine, instead of selling it under its own brand, was sold it to another winery that was in charge of marketing and selling it. It's not regulated in the specifications by the council, but it does exist. There are still aging and expedition wineries, and there are wineries for storage and sanitation, the so-called almacenistas.
I'm now in Montilla, a wine town known for its lusciously sweet fortified wines from Pedro Jimenez. And I will show you the climate, geology and soils that make this style of wine possible in this region. The climate of the south of Spain is instrumental in the production of their distinctive fortified wines, with marked differences between the 2 main areas. Montilla Moriles experiences a warm continental climate, characterized by hot and dry summers and mild winters. The high temperatures during the summer and abundant sunshine help the Pedro Jimenez grapes to ripen fully, concentrating the sugars and flavors which are essential for producing the region's sweet and complex fortified wines. To the west of Andalusia, the Sherry Triangle has a warm Mediterranean climate with mild winters and hot, dry summers. The climate is moderated by the influence of the nearby Atlantic Ocean, which brings cooler breezes and humidity beneficial for the aging process of sherry in the bodegas. Sanlúcar de Barrameda, located on the coast, experiences slightly different climatic conditions compared to the other two towns. It has cooler temperatures and higher humidity levels due to its close proximity to the Atlantic Ocean and the Guadalquivir River. Well, these conditions are ideal for producing manzanilla, a type of Finoserry that develops a unique flavor profile with distinctively fresh and salty character, attributed to the marine influence. Well, I'm here in Montilla Moriles, the denomination of origin, and I'm with Adela Córdoba Ruz, who is the marketing manager of the Bodega Pérez Barquero, who is a very, very famous historical winery here in Montilla.
Adela, thanks for receiving us. How are you?
Thank you, Enrique. Welcome.
Well, we are here in the morning because around here in the middle of July, the summer, you can't come later because it's too hot. We are in the shade of an olive tree in this beautiful Pedro Jimenez vineyard you have. But before you talk about the grapes, I want you to explain to me a little about the climate that characterizes this area, Montilla Moriles.
We are located at the El Lagar de la Cañada estate. We are in the heart of the Montilla mountain range in the Benavente Alto Pego. This is located in Montilla Moriles in the superior quality zone because we are on higher ground above sea level at about 550 to 600 meters. And this is an interior climate. We are 100 kilometers from the Mediterranean Costa del Sol, but the sea breeze doesn't reach here because the Sierra de Malaga mountain range prevents it. We have a hot, dry climate. In winter, temperatures never drop below 0 degrees Celsius, but in summer, they rise substantially. During these months, temperatures frequently exceed 40 degrees.
This means that you have to work the vineyard in that heat and radiation. How do you do it?
You'll be noticing that we don't clear the vineyard from many of its leaves. If you notice, there are two types of plants. We can talk about that later. There are two types of vine training, bush vines and trellises. The traditional ones are this goblet prune vine. Being closer to the ground, it has less length, and the leaves provide shade, like an umbrella. When we talk about the special microclimate of the mountains, we put a lot of emphasis on the great contrast, the large temperature gap, as you say in English, that exists from day to night, exceeding 20 degrees. That's now in the summer months, when ripening is finishing.
Because of the height.
That is given by the height, and the special microclimate here in the Montilla mountain range. That is why it is also considered a superior quality area.
I'm now in Jerez and I'm with Reyes Gomez, who is the enologist of Bodega Sánchez Romate.
Thank you for having us, Regis. How are you?
Glad you're here.
We are in the Marco de Jerez. Actually, we are in Jerez, the city of Jerez, which is part of the Jerez Triangle, along with Sanlúcar and El Puerto de Santa María. But this is Jerez, surely the most famous area in the whole region. Can you describe the climate of this area?
Well, the characteristic of our area's climate in principle is mainly the temperature. During the year round, we have very well-marked cycles of winter and summer. Winters are usually not very harsh. We don't have hail. The truth is that we are fortunate in that regard, because the vineyards don't suffer a lot. We do have a lot of rain, on the other hand. It allows us to work the vineyard on dry farming. We're not allowed to irrigate, but the amount of water that falls is quite significant.
How much this year?
This year we had 450. We did not reach 500.
That's just marginal.
Marginal. And in fact, this year has been low rainfall. The average is 600 liters. That's ideal. And rain is very seasonal. In November, when the plants are dormant, which is very good for them, and then in April. And then in summer we do have very high temperatures. But what benefits us is the temperature difference between day and night. And the plant appreciates that very much because we have very high temperatures during the day. But then at night, we can drop 20 degrees.
Sanlúcar de Barrameda is located in a very, very special place. We have the mouth of a great river, the Guadalquivir River. In a great ocean like the Atlantic with the most important green lung in Europe, which is the Doñana Natural Park. And in a city with a very special geography. Sanlúcar is divided in two by a natural gorge which allows the cool westerly winds to blow, which are the predominant ones at the mouth of the Guadalquivir. The confluence of the tides gives Sanlúcar a climate that is different from the rest of the cities in the area. It is a much milder climate.
That westerly wind also makes you arrange the aging cellars in a certain direction because you benefit from the air that's circulating through the windows. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. And it's also vital. A Western orientation is prevalent in Sanlúcar. When you want to age Manzanilla, there is a difference between the upper and the lower areas of Sanlúcar. Regarding the location of the wineries in the lower side, we are at or below the water level. Therefore, the humidity conditions are much more optimal than in the upper area. In the upper area, the orientation of the bodega is much more important even than in the lower area. Because not having that proximity to water, you necessarily need the cool westerly winds.
The geology and soils in the southern wine areas of Spain are predominantly characterized by the Albariza soil, a white, chalky mold that is excellent for retaining moisture and usually found in the best vineyard sites. The high calcium carbonate content aids in water retention, ensuring that vines have access to moisture even during the dry summer months. This soil is highly reflective, helping to concentrate sunlight on the grapevines, aiding ripening. These conditions are ideal for growing the Pedro Jimenez and Palomino grapes, which are essential for the region's renowned fortified wines. Also present in all the vine areas, Albariza is predominantly found in Montilla Moriles, Jerez de la Frontera, and El Puerto de Santa María. Aside of Albariza, there are two other general types of soils associated to fortified wine production. One is the arenas, sand in Spanish, a sandy soil found mainly in the coastal areas, including Sanlúcar de Barrameda, where it contributes to the unique characteristics of Manzanilla sherry. The other is barros, mud in Spanish, consisting of clay-heavy soils located in lower-lying areas, often mixed with organic matter, which are used for growing grapes destined for less premium sherry production. These diverse soils, combined with the region's unique climate, play a crucial role in the cultivation of grapes and the production of the distinctive fortified wines in the Andalusia region.
Adela, well, one of the most unique features of your denomination, is the Albariza, which is a calcareous soil, calcium carbonate. Tell me about it.
Albarita is a privileged terrain for growing vines and also for the other crops, but especially for the vineyard. It is a very porous terrain. If you look closely, it's damp, and this has a much higher retention power for humidity. The little rain that falls here, it will sink very well into the subsoil and will allow the plant to stay hydrated throughout the season, particularly during the hottest months. And at the same time, this white color, Albarita, comes from Latin, albus, which means white. It allows the plant to receive not only solar radiation, but also reflections from the soil itself.
And it also doesn't get hot because since it's clear, it doesn't retain heat.
It retains moisture, but it doesn't retain heat.
It is my understanding as well that the surface crystallizes and does not allow the water to evaporate, right?
That's correct. It closes, compacts, and retains moisture. In other words, its great advantage, its great virtue, is its moisture retaining power. And then it adds a minerality and a salinity that really pops out in the wines.
Many winemakers from all around the world with visits, they tell us that when they find a calcareous pocket of limestone, it's like a wonder to them. You have it all over the place here. In fact, it's very clear there.
Yes.
You have a vertical cut.
Let's go there. Here, Enrique, we can see exactly what the subsoil is like. We have a cut of terrain and we can see the limestone, the calcium carbonate that makes up the Albariza soils, from which we feel so blessed.
Very good. You can't even see the stones. They're limestone too, right?
Yes, they are.
They are interspersed throughout the soil, but it's quite deep.
And according to geologists, the subsoil comes from ancient times when there was an ocean here. That's where the salinity comes from. Here we have found marine fossils, whale remains. Many, many years ago, all this was an ocean.
There is a technique that you use here in the wintertime, I guess when it starts to rain in November, by which you make some holes in the ground.
The aserpiado.
How do you call them?
Aserpias.
So you make holes where? In between the vines?
Yes, but not on all of them, but on certain rows. They are a kind of bucket-like holes made with a shovel machine. And then you end up having those aserpias in between the vines that then, when it rains, they retain the water. If you don't do that, the water eventually washes away the soil, because here when it rains, it rains. Actually, the amount of rain that falls is quite a bit and in very short periods of time.
But I don't see them.
Because then the plow is passed over and the soil is pressed down so that the water remains beneath the surface. If we don't, we would lose the water. We have to cover it and seal the soil, compacting it.
Your soils are primarily albariza. They have already explained to us in Montilla Moriles what albariza is about. I'm not going to ask you again, but I'd like you to explain those other two types of soil found in the south in Andalusia, the arenas and the barros.
We are extremely fortunate to have all the vineyards in Balbaina Alta, and last year we also made an investment buying land in Anina, where we have 20 hectares since last year. But we are in what has historically been called Jerez Superior, which are albariza soils of the highest quality. But in the Marco de Jerez, they have always been another two types of soil, barros, which has a higher clay content, and arenas. The arenas or sands mainly in two very specific areas of Sanlúcar, Chipiona and Chiclana, closer to the ocean.
I am in Viña La Soledad, in Sanlúcar de Barrameda, where Palomino grapes are grown for the production of a particularly dedicated style of fortified wine, Manzanilla, that benefits from the maritime influence of the Atlantic. In the south of Spain, viticultural practices for fortified wines differ between Montilla Moriles and the Serri Triangle, reflecting the specific needs of the Pedro Jiménez and Palomino grapes. In Montilla Moriles, where Pedro Jiménez grapes are predominant, vines are trained low to the ground to benefit from the heat of the albariza soil, promoting high sugar levels, essential for sweet wines. Pruning practices maintain low yields for flavor concentration, and grapes are often sun-dried post-harvest to further enhance sweetness. In the Serri Triangle, the focus is on Palomino grapes. Vines are trained on trellises to maximize sun exposure and air circulation, critical in the humid coastal climate. Pruning ensures low yields for quality, and grapes are harvested earlier to preserve acidity necessary for dry cherries like Fino and Manzanilla. Soil management practices in albariza soils are essential for moisture retention and grape health. Let's ask the producers about these details.
Regarding viticulture and your winemaking practices, you have two types of vineyards. The old bush strain type, and now moving into trellis systems for several reasons.
For many reasons. That's right. We have the old vines, which are the ones trained as bushes. These are the oldest, and the new ones are trellised, which is what we were talking about. We harvest at night. When I talk about nighttime, I'm not telling you where it is at 10 or 11 p.m. with accumulated heat after the whole day. We start at 5 a.m. and finish at 9 a.m. Another of our advantages is that we process the grapes in a lagar that is right here on the Cañada estate itself, so the bunches can be transported immediately. We avoid oxidation this way. There is no sunlight, and at the same time, we benefit from the low nighttime temperatures. And it's for this reason that we use trellises now, as they allow for quick mechanized harvesting. With the old bush vines, we must hand pick with a flashlight and is very slow.
In the past, we had all the vines in low bushes. But more recently, the vineyard has been replaced and we have been renovating it. Why? So we can put it on trellises.
And it let the grapes be harvested mechanically. I guess that you harvest at night.
Yes, only night harvest.
That is important for you, right?
There comes a time when the truth is that the temperatures are quite high and it's getting harder and harder to find people who will pick the grapes. So the truth is that this has been the trend in the Marco de Jerez. In reality, in recent times the machinery has advanced a lot. And it's not the same as it was 15 years ago.
How we have organized the vineyards. Well, we have everything on the site geared toward the vara y pulgar or cane and spur pruning system. The vara y pulgar system is very special and representative of Sanlúcar de Barrameda, which you can then obviously find in the rest of the cities in the Marco de Jerez. In the end, we are looking for a product with much greater finesse, less concentration, and greater refinement.
And then the grapes are picked at night, so it's cold, and they're fermented in the vineyard directly, right?
We currently have 3 vineyards, Las Cañas, La Soledad, and La Media Naranja. Las Cañas and La Soledad in Balvaina Alta, which are about 100 hectares, and La Media Naranja in Añina, which is about 20 hectares, which is the oldest vineyard the winery has, which is actually one of the vineyards about which there are the oldest written documents in the entire Marco de Jerez. Well, we must take into account that we are in an area where vines were already cultivated and wine was produced more than 3,000 years ago. Las Cañas is a historic vineyard, and it's there where we do everything. That is, we harvest and make the wine.
Two grape varieties set the stage when it comes to fortified wines in the south of Spain, Pedro Ximénez and Palomino. Pedro Ximénez is a grape variety primarily grown in Montilla Moriles. It is renowned for its high sugar content, making it ideal for producing sweet fortified wines. The grapes are often sun-dried to concentrate their sugars further, resulting in rich syrupy wines with flavors of raisins, figs, and molasses. These wines are typically dark and viscous, known for intense sweetness and complexity. Palomino is the dominant grape in the Sherry Triangle, particularly suited for the production of dry sherries. It thrives in the Albariza soils of Jerez and Sanlúcar, which retain moisture and provide essential nutrients. Palomino grapes are harvested early to maintain their natural acidity, crucial for styles like Fino and Manzanilla. These wines are typically pale and light, with delicate flavors of almonds, green apples, and yeast, especially when aged under floor yeast in the Solera system. And then Palomino is also used, as well as Pedro Ximénez, for the production of a variety of other styles of wine, including Amontillados and Olorosos or Palo Cortados. Let's have a look at this.
Pedro Ximénez.
Pedro Ximénez is the queen grape. Montilla Moriles equals Pedro Ximénez.
How did you describe it?
Well, again, I have to brag about this area because we feel privileged to be able to grow crops in this climate and soil. This grape variety is very, very versatile. It allows us to develop in traditional wines from the driest to the sweetest to the famous Pedro Ximénez.
Many people associate Pedro Ximénez with that sweet, brown, fantastic, very dense, very viscous wine. But you do it from dry Fino all the way to that sweet strain.
What is usually not known is that Fino Amontillado means Fino wine on the Montilla style. Palo Cortado, Oloroso are all wines that here in our Montilla Moriles area. It has an advantage, which is that we obtain high alcohol wines naturally from this grape. Pedro Ximénez is very rich in sugars, so that with the must, once fermented in the wine press, we reach 15 and even 16% alcohol, completely natural. That is to say, Montilla wines are not usually fortified. Then, morphologically speaking, it is a round grape with very thin skin. When we pick a berry and we hold it up to the light, the seed can be seen. This makes it sensitive to humid climates. That's why we were saying that the advantage of Montilla Moriles. It's because it's inland and has a dry climate. And that's why it can be grown here and not in coastal areas. And then, when it comes to the asoleo process to turn the grapes into raisins and make sweet wines, it is an advantage as well. that the skin is so thin.
I wanted to ask about this because with most wines, the story ends here. It arrives at the winery and that's where they make the wine they need to make. But in the case of sweet Pedro Jimenez, you leave those grapes out there, which is the asoleo.
We'll harvest it at its peak ripeness, just as we do when making dry wines. But before getting them to the winery, we leave the bunches in the sun in the field on some stretches of land that we call caseras. With the climate here, after 3 or 4 days, one face of the grapes has already dehydrated. Then the bunch is turned over. This is a very artisanal process. The grapes are turned over by hand and the same thing happens on the other side. The water is lost and the sugar and other components of the grape are concentrated.
How long it takes, more or less?
More or less in 5 to 7 days, depending on how it advances. We're talking about a unique sweet wine, the must, which is sweet and intense, as if it were a raisin honey.
Here we operate with 2 denominations of origin. On the one hand, we have the denomination of origin Jerez and the denomination of origin Manzanilla Sanlúcar de Barrameda. In the Du Jerez, there are several varieties of grapes allowed. For example, Peruno, which is a minority variety that has been incorporated into the Jerez specifications but that has always been here, and the traditional ones that already existed, which are Moscatel and Pedro Jimenez. Pedro Jimenez is also grown in the Marco de Jerez. In the case of Manzanilla Sanlúcar de Barrameda, what we have done is to eliminate from the specifications Moscatel and Pedro Jimenez, and we have only focused on the priority grape in the area, which accounts for more than 90% of the planting area, which is the Palomino. Palomino Fino o Listán Blanco.
In some parts of the world, even in Spain, I think, they still call it Listán Blanco, not Palomino.
Indeed, in the Canary Islands. In the Canary Islands, there weren't any grapes, there were no vines. Vines arrived to the Canary Islands when we discovered America because it was an obligatory stop for the ships in their travels to America.
I'm going to ask you about the Airén grape. I know you don't grow it here because it doesn't grow well here, and that you bring it from Castilla-La Mancha, but it's the grape that you use to make your brandies, which are very well known. Can you explain that grape to me a little?
The variety Airén has similarities with the Palomino grape.
Is it neutral?
It's somehow neutral. It's indeed an aromatic variety, but when it comes to the wine, for the aging in the winery, it's not that we need a very aromatic wine. It has its aroma, but it serves us well for what we're looking for. The Airén variety is similar in that respect, and it is also a very productive variety. And in fact, in La Mancha, it grows very, very well. There are large extensions of land with this grape, and it's also a grape grows very healthy. That doesn't cause many, many problems.
I am in Sanlúcar de Barrameda, in front of the Center for the Interpretation of Manzanilla, and I'm here to present the section where we will discover how fortified wines are made in the south of Spain. The winemaking process for fortified wines involves several key steps. Grapes are harvested when they reach the desired ripeness. For Pedro Jimenez in Montilla Moriles, grapes are often sun-dried after harvesting to concentrate sugars, while Palomino is usually picked up early to retain a high degree of acidity. The grapes are then crushed and the juice is fermented. For dry sherries, such as Fino, fermentation is typically completed fully to produce a dry base wine. After fermentation, the wine is fortified with grape spirit. The level of fortification varies. Lighter styles like Fino and Manzanilla are fortified to around 15%, while richer styles like Oloroso are fortified to about 17 or 18%. The wines are then aged in a solera system, a dynamic process involving fractional blending through a series of barrels, which ensures consistency and complexity over time. On the one end, Fino and Manzanilla undergo a biological aging process under a layer of floor yeast, which protects the wine from oxidation and imparts unique flavors. On the other end, Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez are aged oxidatively without floor, developing rich, nutty and caramelized flavors. In the middle, Palo Cortado and Amontillado see a bit of both worlds, with both biological and oxidative aging. The wines are periodically blended within the Solera system to maintain a consistent house style before being bottled for consumption. These steps, tailored to the specific grape varieties and desired wine styles, are essential to producing the distinctive fortified wines of southern Spain. By the way, some of the best grape brandy spirits in the world are also made in the area, and we will also learn about their elaboration. I cannot wait to visit the famous Soleras and talk to the winemakers about this. Well, now I'm inside the bodega of Pérez Barquero, and I'm with Rafael Delgado, who is the export director of the bodega.
Rafael, thanks for receiving us. How are you?
Very well. Thanks for visiting and welcome.
Well, we are in your production room, which is where wine was fermented in the past. You still use it. This is very, very characteristic of this region, isn't it?
That's correct. We are in a cellar of jars. This is where wine has traditionally been fermented. It should be noted that this traditionally was made in clay jars that were smaller, taking advantage of the porosity of the clay at a much more suitable temperature. Then there comes a time when we have to industrialize the process, and we can no longer use clay, because clay doesn't provide enough consistency and strength, and there comes a time when we begin use these jars. They are made of cement with a mesh, a metal structure that gives it consistency. And from there, we find jars from 1,000 liters to 20,000 liters. These ones we have here have a capacity of about 6,000 liters. This is where the wine ferments. The must ferments in conditions that, with the outside temperature being quite high, we've had to take into account the lower porosity of the cement. And what we have had to do is raise the ceilings, add many windows, including a few small windows at the bottom, which allow us to circulate air through the space. But despite everything, other methods had to be used to keep the temperature down. What was done was not to fill the jar all at once with a must, but rather it was added in different phases. When the tumultuous fermentation had stopped, it had gone down a little, more must was added to it, and then a bit more and more.
To keep the temperature under control.
Indeed, because in the fermentation process, apart from the conversion of sugar into alcohol, what it does is increase the temperature. There's a moment when we make a selection of the must that we will use. For what wine each must will be used. The must from very gentle pressing is what we normally use for Fino wine. A second, stronger pressing, where there is an oxidative element, would serve as the base wine for the Oloroso.
Can we open one of these covers?
Here, for example, you can see it. Here we see the veil of flor that we obtain because it happens that we have a pleasant temperature. It's not too hot, otherwise there might not be a veil of flor in the jar.
Well, Rafael, we are in an area of your bodega. How did you call it?
Bodega.
Your Crianza bodega, with beautiful bars with the family crest. And I want you to explain to me the biological and mixed aging that you do for your wines.
Here is where we have organic and biological aging because it's produced under a veil of flor. This is the layer of yeast that the wine itself develops and that it protects itself from oxidation. But at the same time, it provides those characteristics that are so important to it.
We're talking about the living being, the flor.
Exactly.
Flor that has to survive for 10 years because if it's lost, the wine oxidizes. What do you have here that helps the flor?
First, we're talking about very high ceilings, a large distance between the last barrel and the ceiling. And we also have some very thick walls that are painted white to reflect the sun. And another very important thing, our wines need to be in contact with air. They need ventilation. For this, we have the windows. The windows are open during the night, and they are opened first thing in the morning. so that there is a natural ventilation, of course, which allows the temperature to cool down a bit.
We are in one of your fantastic historic wineries. This warehouse is spectacular. Well, you can see your name over there. This is where you age your sherries and your brandies. Later, we'll go to another bodega where you will talk about the brandies. But in the production of sherries, can you explain to me how Amontillado is made? I don't think I'm wrong if I say that it's perhaps the most exquisite of Andalusian sherry wines.
Within our special reserves, we have the NPU Non Plus Ultra, which is all Amontillados. It has previously been a fino wine. It is always necessary that there is a stage of biological aging of the Amontillado, and it may have less or more biological than oxidative aging, depending on the style. This was a fino wine with 15% alcohol aged biologically for approximately 5 years on average. At a certain point, we add alcohol to kill the flor and allow the start of the oxidate aging phase. The veil of flor can no longer withstand that amount of alcohol and falls to the bottom. Then the oxidative aging process begins, which, as I told you before, lasts approximately 10 more years. We end with an Amontillado with 15 years of total aging in average.
And there is another one that has something of a mystery, Palo Cortado, and no one has been able to explain exactly what is it.
It's not like Amontillado, because Amontillado has clearly gone through a very long process with biological aging, with characteristics that it will never lose. In the case of Palo Cortado, it's a very special touch that the wine has had. In theory, it would have been aged with an oxidative process without flor, but that for some time has been in contact with the flor, in contact with the yeast. It's funny, but that nuance doesn't really disappear, and as time goes by, it becomes more apparent.
I see, so the Fino, the Amontillado, and the Palo Cortado all have in common that they have seen flor in some way, right?
Correct.
El Oloroso without flor.
Without flor.
This one has been oxidized from the start, but you will explain that to me somewhere else.
Yes, in a different bodega. Let's go.
Okay, Rafael, now we are at the part where you do the oxidative process of Olorosos, and the Pedro Jimenez in some of these barrels as well. I can already smell the sweetness here.
Yes, well, really, and besides, the structure is completely different in the Oloroso. What we want to achieve specifically is to oxidize the wine, of course, but the oxidation has to be very gentle. We could have the easy possibility with the sun that we have in this region to put the barrels outside for much better exposure. But it needs to be gentle, and here we have an environment that, although it's hot, it is relatively mild. We recently watered the soil precisely so that it would be a little more humid. Also, hot air rises upwards, and the ceilings are not completely closed, but rather, a more open environment is created. This is what causes this oxidation, but in a gentle manner, which takes a long time.
Well, I'm in Aguilar de la Frontera, a little town in the denomination of origin Montilla Moriles, and I'm with Antonio Sorcato, who is the sports director of Bodegas Toro Albalá, a very historical bodega, winery here in the south of Spain.
Antonio, thanks for receiving us. We have the glasses ready. Thanks. How are you?
Very well. Fantastic.
We're not going to the vineyard, as I want you to explain how you elaborate your wines. You make a large selection of wines, you have a lot of variety, but I really want you to explain to me the making of sweet Pedro Jimenez. From the start, actually, you do it in a very special way because you have Pedro Jimenez by vintage, which you don't see the Solera system.
That's correct. Well, we start by harvesting in the middle to end of August for fino wines. And at the end of August, we select the grape that has the most ripeness, more sugar. And we take it to a village next to us called Montemayor, where we lie the grapes on the floor under the sun. In this way, we use the radiation heat of the sun that allows us to dry the grape and get the raisins.
To dry the grapes?
Right, to dry them. And this takes around 10 days. It depends on the year. Last year they dried in 7 days due to high temperatures. Depending on the heat, the quality of the grape varies. The pros of Pedro Jimenez is its high sugar content, which helps when making a sweet wine. The cons of this type of winemaking is that it is very costly. Not only expensive at the level of the harvest, but the level of drying the grape, because you need to work during 10 days with lots of people with temperatures reaching 50 degrees during the day. In addition, we lose more or less 70% of the water in the grape. So 1 million kilos of grapes represents 300,000 kilos of dry grapes that produce little wine. So a pretty expensive wine.
So, where you will get 3 bottles of dry wine, you may only get 1 of sweet Pedro Jimenez.
Exactly that. That's quite a high cost, but it is necessary to have that quality of product. Then the winemaking is a simple elaboration process. It has practically no fermentation, or very little, and we quickly add the alcohol to fortify.
How much alcohol from fermentation?
5 or 6%. I always say that is symbolic. Then we are going to add alcohol up to 15, 16, or 17%.
The alcohol that you use to fortify your sherries, well, in this case your Pedro Jimenez, is different from the one used in Porto for fortified Porto wines, right?
Yes, it's different. Yes, our alcohol is 96%, almost double than the one they use in Porto.
So basically you add alcohol, but you don't really add extra aromas because it's pure alcohol.
No, we already have the aromas. We have them in the wine.
I understand.
We have enough. We don't need more aromas. Then, from that point, we do the aging. We do the crianza in wood bodas of 500 liters as we have here, unless we want to elaborate a young wine without aging, which we also do. Those are wines of the year without barrel aging. Then we have that winery specialty to make vintage wines with barrel aging. This is our own criterion from the first generations of the family owners, with aging of at least 20 years. People usually ask why we make vintage wines, as they are most costly. Of course, it costs much more than making wines by the Solera system, double or triple. We were looking for a way to reach a particular consumer, who is the wine collector, and also the person who likes to try new things every year. If you do it with a Solera system, you will always have the same wine.
Well, Reyes, now we are in the Cardenal Mendoza Solera. Cardenal Mendoza is a brandy with a lot of tradition, with a long history. It's been around for many years, probably more than 100, I don't know. And you sell it in approximately 60 countries. It is recognized worldwide. The bottle is very well known. How is it made?
Cardinal Mendoza has been produced since 1887. It's our house flagship. We always look for the best alcohol distillates and the most aromatic ones, with the highest possible quantity of volatile substances of the highest quality, because we're already looking from start for a Solera brandy, a Gran Reserva. In Jerez, we have 3 types of brandy: Solera, Reserva, and Gran Reserva.
How long they had to age for?
The minimum aging times are 6 months, 1 year, and 3 years, respectively.
You go far beyond that.
Yes, of course. With our base Cardinal Mendoza Gran Reserva, we are talking about 15 years in average.
And this is just your classic Cardenal Mendoza brandy.
Jerez brandy Cardinal Mendoza Gran Reserva.
And it is done with the alcohol distilled from the highest quality Airén grapes from Castilla-La Mancha. So the secret is in the aging? How do you do it?
Well, we use what we've been talking about, those high-quality distillates with low alcohol content, because there are 3 types of alcohols that we can use. High-proof spirits, which are 90% or so proof, are the most commonly used for Soleras. Then there would be the aguardiente spirits, which are medium-proof alcohols, around 70%. And then the low-alcohol ones, which are the ones we use, which we call the Holandas here. And we are talking about 65 degrees. Prior to blending them with our base, we age the Holandas in a vintage system that we use here. That is, Before putting it into our criaderas y solera aging system of Cardinal Mendoza, there is a system of aging of those Holandas beforehand, which lasts approximately 3 years. Then, when we have to feed the criadera system, we use those already aged Holandas. The Holandas are added into the 7th criadera, because Cardinal Mendoza has 7 criaderas and the solera. When we take finished Cardinal Mendoza from the solera, which is precisely what we have right here, we have 325 casks of what is the solera, and then we do a corrida de escala from the 1st criadera to the solera, from the 2nd to the 1st, and so on, and from the Holandas into the 7th, where it all starts. Our casks have previously had been aged in Olorosos and Pedro Jimenez, which gives it the particular characteristics that it has.
Your brandy is very recognizable, yes. So your brandy moves dynamically through those 7 criaderas and the solera for approximately 15 years in average. It is like about 2 years on each criadera.
More or less, yes.
In general, how is Manzanilla Sanlúcar de Barrameda made? I always say that when the rest of the world ends, we start the production of traditional Andalusian wines as we start with a finished white wine. In our case, Palomino Fino grapes, already fermented, which are now wine, that is, with the fermentation process complete, arrive here and we fortify it. Usually in Sanlúcar we add 15.3% or 15.4% alcohol.
To do that in the state.
In our case, we do it directly in the lagar itself. And that fortified wine is what we bring to the winery to be incorporated into the classes and solera system. For our Manzanilla Gorila, specifically, we have a 7-class system until it reaches the solera. It has to spend at least 7 years in the criaderos.
Well, Gabriel, here we are in one of your 4 bodegas, where you have the criaderas, or the classes that you use for aging Manzanilla, and other wines that you have as well. Tell me exactly how that process is done for the Manzanilla.
Well, we come with a white wine base to which we have added alcohol up to 15.3, 15.4, or even 15.5% alcohol in Sanlúcar, as the aging is very long. We call this white wine fortified with alcohol sobre tabla. That wine gets transferred then into our class and solera system, which is how it is traditionally called, this dynamic aging system, in which the wine is in constant movement. In the case of our Manzanilla Gabriela, we have 7 classes and the solera. In those 7 classes, the 7th is the youngest. From there, the wine goes into the 6th, from the 6th to the 5th, from the 5th to the 4th, then the 3rd, and finally into the solera, which holds the oldest wine. Here we have the 2nd class. This is the San Miguel Winery, which is a beautiful 19th century winery in a French construction style in which the roof is supported by 6 columns, which are also hollow and allow for a second use. They also have a dual function, which is to collect from the rainwater, which once went to a cistern. That is to say, absolutely everything is used here. And this is the 2nd class. Normally, most wineries are set up in 3 heights. That means there are 3 rows of barrels. There are some wineries that have much higher ceilings than these and allow us to ride in 4 rows.
And then you have all those windows that you see everywhere, which is what helps cooling the bodega. Not only cooling, but also providing the air circulation that the floor needs to form. Because we haven't talked about it yet, but these bodegas aren't completely full, right? You leave a space above the wine for the floor to grow while biologically aging Manzanilla.
Of course. Normally in our bodegas, we always leave on each barrel 4 arrobas of air. The arroba is a measurement system used for traditional Andalusian wines, equivalent to 16.6 liters. Approximately 16 liters, which was the size of a large demijohn, one of those typical glass jars that we still use. Air circulation is essential. For this reason, traditionally, wine cellars are always oriented to the west. The windows in the west are open, while the ones in the east are almost closed. The east windows usually more covered, but always with some openings that allow air circulation.
You told me this is the 2nd class. From here, the 1st class would come, and then the solera. Can we see a solera?
Yes, we will go later to a solera, because it will be very interesting for you to hear the Manzanilla.
Did you say hearing the Manzanilla?
With your ears.
To see, or better, I want to hear that.
You must taste Manzanilla with all your senses. And there's one that's hearing, which is fundamental. You have to hear it.
Okay, well, let's go to hear the Manzanilla.
Let's go.
in Jerez, the quintessential home of Sherry wines, where we delve into the world of fortified wines. Here, at one of the arms of the Sherry Triangle, a place of time-honored traditions, we join passionate producers to explore the distinctive flavors of Sherry, including Oloroso, Pedro Jimenez, and so on. Each glass reveals an essence of terroir, blending with history, craftsmanship, and the sun embrace. Join us as we taste the Andalusia region in every sip.
And this is the Solera.
Here we are at the Solera of Manzanilla Gabriela.
Okay, let's see what is that here in the Manzanilla.
Absolutely. Let's hear it. Because the sound tells us exactly how the wine is.
So, did it sound well?
Like the angels. The sound as it falls in a glass tells about its density, if it's dry, or if it's like this one, which is extremely dry. Manzanilla, by definition, is one of the driest wines in the world.
Well, I like to try it from the bottle, the finished product, ready for commercialization. But you can already see that it has a very complex, very fine nose. Okay, Gabriel, after this long day, we've spent 5 or 6 hours visiting the vineyard, the bodegas, the palace. It's been a fantastic day. But we can't leave without trying your Manzanilla Gabriela. It is so famous that I understand that the locals ask for it by name. They ask for Manzanilla when they want a normal Manzanilla, but people order Gabriela when they want something a little more exquisite.
Yes, we're lucky enough that people ask for the name. It's a classic presentation where we indicate the pago in Balbaina Alta and the Du Manzanilla Sanlúcar de Barrameda with 6 to 7 years of aging.
Very well, let's go ahead and try it. Oh, look, see how pale the color is. Pale, beautiful, clear.
Clear, of course, as it's a biologically aged wine. Well, visually, we see that it has a straw yellow color tending towards gold, which is the classic color of Manzanilla from Sanlúcar. On the nose, it has those aromas, that minerality typical of the soil we have in the vineyard. And when we put it in the mouth, what we see is a softness, a freshness. That perfect amount of salinity, that speed, that enveloping wine. It's a wine that invites you to keep drinking.
It's a wine that is drunk here with food from the area. What is the best pairing?
Manzanilla pairs with perfect harmony with Sanlúcar prawns. So if you want, let's go to the tavern and try it.
And the ham.
And the acorn-fed Iberian ham, of course.
Yes, please, let's go to the bar and try it.
Let's go.
Gabriel, we brought your Manzanilla here to your tavern, which you have inside the bodega. What we discussed, the pairing with Sanlúcar prawns and Iberic ham.
Let's start with the ham.
This is a delicatessen.
With the natural fat that ham has, ham of such high quality as the Iberian acorn-fed hams, such a dry wine perfectly cleansed the fat from your mouth, enhancing the flavors. Well, and the prawns from Sanlúcar de Barrameda, they're another real delight, aren't they?
Well, we come from the United States, and Americans over there usually don't like to eat the prawns with heads. But I suggest those watching us to come here and ask for prawns with head. It's the best of it.
They are fantastic. One of the great harmonies that God has given us, as we say here in Sanlúcar.
Well, Gabriel, it's been a real pleasure visiting you. This day has been one to remember. Thank you very much for everything.
A pleasure. This is your house.
Well, we're here to try your wines, which in this case is an Oloroso, that you're going to take it straight out of the bota barrel with the
Avenencia. Avenencia is a word that describes an agreement that has been reached, and this was the way to seal that deal. With a glass of sherry that was served with this tool. Interestingly, if it were the first Sunday in September, someone who knows much better than I do would be getting wine from this bota, would be pouring it over the chalice of the priest who is officiating at a flamenco mass taking place here every year. Right here in this chapel.
I understand, interesting. We'll have to come back on September 1st to see that. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. Very well, thank you. That's beautiful, and I assume it's difficult as well.
Difficult, yes. It is difficult if you are not properly trained.
Difficult because the Avenencia needs to break the floor in a gentle way, right? Not with this wine, it is an Oloroso and there is no floor. But when there is floor, you need to make it a perfect small hole, right?
That's the important thing. We're doing it now with an Oloroso wine, so we don't need to worry about destroying the vela floor. But with the botas of Fino wine, the Avenencia breaks the floor, and it must be done with a sharp movement, so that the hole is as small as possible, so that the flower itself can close it. That's very easy to do in spring and fall, but in summer the floor is thin and fragile.
I understand. Well, let's try this Oloroso.
Of course, we're talking about a wine with oxidative aging here. We are outside. This is a wine from the second pressing of the grapes, which we have left to have those tones much more oxidative. And the process itself is oxidative because it is outside of the winery in this case, with changes in temperature and humidity.
Well, let's try it. The truth is that it smells great, very complex, and with very high alcohol.
We're talking about 18.5 degrees, 19 degrees of alcohol. When bottled, it is normally between 19 degrees. It depends on the barrel. And what is clear is that it is a wine that has, above all, a very strong structure.
Very well, Rafael. Well, thank you very much for having us and for teaching us this.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here, and please, remember us and come back to see us again.
Of course. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Well, Antonio, after all the explanations of how your sweet Pedro Jimenez is done, we need to try it. And plus, we are going to try it straight from the barrel, from one of the vintages that you have in the higher regards, which is the vintage of 1964. I had not been born then.
Yes, 1964. It is a very special vintage for us. Then was when Antonio Sanchez actually works with his uncle, with Jose Maria Toro Albala in the 60s, and they collaborated in that vintage. That was the new spirit of the third generation working together with the second.
I really want to try it.
Let's try it.
Oh wow, what a color. It's really dark.
I will serve myself a glass so we can toast together.
Oh, it smells beautifully.
Toro Albala is the only winery in the area which produces vintage Pedro Jimenez. It is important to understand that the winery began bottling these wines in 1995. That is, from 1844 to 1995, they were never bottled. We only worked with dry wines, which was the winery business exclusively. This was a whim.
Of course, a long-term whim. This one, for example, has been there for 60 years.
More than 60 years.
This has been bottled already, right?
Yes, it's been bottled. On the nose, we have licorice and chocolate. We have the dried fruit, raisins. The color is natural for this wine, completely natural. It's a very oxidative wine. The barrel is not filled completely, which accelerates oxidation of the wine.
And as you were saying, all the aromas in the nose translate to the mouth as well.
Yes, in the mouth, we have nuts, walnuts, tobacco. This is what I like of this wine. From time to time, I smoke cigars. I like a good cigar, and with that wine is a marvel as the cigar is quite powerful, and with the sweet wine it complements very well with the aromas of the one and the other. I also picture this wine pairing well with blue cheese.
That's what I was thinking. It will work well with a strong cheese.
This wine is fantastic.
Very well, Antonio. Thank you very much for all the explanations and for letting me try this delicious wine.
Thank you for visiting our winery.
Our very pleasure.
Thank you.
We're going to try the Amontillado straight from the bottle.
Let's go ahead.
It has a very elegant bouquet. The Amontillado is one of my favorite wines.
For me, it is my favorite wine from the winery, the one I like the most. It has an aroma of dried fruits, nuts. The alcohol content is high. It's a wine that has 19% of alcohol.
19%, of course.
But you can't tell the amount of alcohol it has, because the entrance is very friendly.
You explained to me earlier that it had a total aging of
15 years.
5 underfloor and 10 oxidative.
That's correct. In the end, it is what makes it a very tasty wine.
Spectacular, very good. Well, from here we're gonna try the Cardenal Mendoza,
The brandy.
which is in another solera.
Yes.
Let's go then.
Let's go.
Well, Reyes, now is the time to try your Cardenal Mendoza. I've tried many times. I always have a bottle at home, but I never tried it straight from the barrel. I'm from the solera, indeed.
This is a privilege. We don't allow everybody down here. As I was saying before, the Solera. The wine here has been aged for about 15 years.
And managing the Venencia is an art.
Yeah, well,
I see that you have your own trick.
we all have our own tricks.
You haven't dropped a single bit.
Let me change it for you.
Thank you. Fantastic.
Cardinal Mendoza is a brandy that is quite complex. But within that complexity, and as a result of the long aging, it has no rough edges. It is a very good brandy. All the aromas well integrated. It is a very balanced brandy. On the nose, you can obviously notice the alcoholic note, because it also displays those sweet notes, because alcohol causes sweetness. And it is very reminiscent of the Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez previously aged in the barrels. This provides the dried fruit and nuts.
Nuts, hazelnut, those kind of aromas.
Yes, nuts and black fruits, plums, figs.
Raisins.
Yes, raisins and notes of toast, cocoa, coffee. It has a clear essence of caramel. You feel the Pedro Jimenez they filled the barrel with previously, which was sweet, very, very sweet. This is the sweetest wine we have in Jerez. This is what adds sweetness to the brandy. So, within the brandy categories, in our case, it would be among the sweet ones.
Well, you have some other brandies that you have aged longer. Those are...
Carta Real and Non Plus Ultra.
How old are those?
They feed on the Solera of the Cardinal Mendoza Gran Reserva, and then it goes to the system of Criaderas and Solera of Carta Real. 30 years of aging in average.
You have more criaderas for that one.
Yes, and the Solera. And then Cardinal Mendoza Non Plus Ultra.
And that one?
That one could be about 50 years old.
So they started making that one around the time I was born.
Well, more or less. I told you that the winery was founded in 1781, and the brandy Cardinal Mendoza was founded in 1887. Something remains from that time in the barrel. We always say that sherry barrels are always full, so there is always some wine coming from 200 years ago, from the time it was first elaborated.
Those we will try later, but not for this documentary. Thank you so much, Reyes, for explaining everything you do here.
Thank you for visiting.
It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure.
the sun-drenched vineyards of southern Spain emerges a history woven in every sip of 45 wine. A tale of heritage, craftsmanship, and the enduring spirit of those who tend these lands. As I raise my glass to the traditions upheld at the historic bodegas that we have visited, I celebrate not just a beverage, but a cultural treasure that continues to captivate palates around the world. It's been a pleasure to visit this marvelous land and try these wines. Thanks for accompanying us in this journey. And check winedos.com for more information and perhaps purchase some of these wines that we have tasted here with the producers. Cheers.